Musk once described herself as a young singer-songwriter with big dreams, an entrepreneurial streak, and a global-sized heart. As an early adopter of the Google+ on-air Hangout feature, she went global overnight from her small-town studio tucked away in the forest, going from local artist to touring the world in one night. Since that groundbreaking night, Daria's been featured in Billboard magazine, Entertainment Tonight, done her first TED Talk, has been on stages all over the world, and just wrapped her first music video with Grammy Award-winning director Chris Robinson. She is a walking inspiration, full of insights about creating dreams, and I'm thrilled she agreed to join me on The Chat. Hey everybody, it's The Chat with Karen Hutton. Sound bite-sized insights from some of the coolest people on the planet. And that includes Daria Musk. Hey, Daria.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. I have to say before we start that I believe that art in our lives is so important, because I think that what art does, and I'm including music in this, as you know, we've had these conversations a lot.
Yes, absolutely.
That art gives us new ways of envisioning things and envisioning how we can live and how we can be, and just new worlds, you know. And I think it sort of lends itself to living your life as an artist, or better yet, as I always say, living your life as an art.
I love that. I love that. I absolutely think that that's true. And I know we love just hanging out all night and waxing rhapsodic about this kind of stuff. And I think art, especially songs, you know, are such fabulously bite-sized, memeable little bits of art that we can carry with us without any kind of stuff that you need to carry it around. You can carry it around in your heart and in your head, and you can just kind of hit play, or you can sing it and share it with somebody else. And so I definitely think that songs help us all filter our world as artists and see it in that way and add that extra glow to things. So
yeah. Absolutely. And even though I'm a photographer, of course I'm a photographer and a voiceover artist, I really wanted this show to be about not just photography, but this whole notion of ways of living and envisioning things. For the folks at home, Daria and I met actually on a photo walk, speaking of photography and music, in the pouring rain in Austin, Texas, on a Trey Ratcliffe photo walk. And she and I just hit it off. We just had the same philosophy of life and outlook on things, and it's just been so much fun ever since. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to have her on the show, is just to share a bit about your path, because in the last couple of years, like the way I like to introduce you is Daria Musk, internationally known singer, songwriter. What else do I say? Google+ success story, philosopheress, and success story. I mean, yeah. I mean, what art, what you've done with your art and your life and your vision is such an inspiration, and you have so many insights now in your very few years, but things have really accelerated in the last couple of years, and I just wondered if you could share a little bit about that with folks.
Of course, and thank you for the incredibly sweet, glossy introduction to what is really a 10-year overnight success, you know, which I think I'm discovering now more and more is maybe what all of them are. You know, really getting in that. Everybody knows I do my, you know, Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours kind of quotables, you know. I think that really is what it is. I even made a little video called 10,000 Hours to Your Dreams that was super fast cuts. I don't know if you've seen it, of me writing songs in my pajamas and playing empty clubs and sneezing in the middle of a take, you know, so people could see that it really was all of this time before the ta-da, here I am, that it felt like here on Google+. But that was the absolutely magic ingredient that accelerated everything, and kind of felt like, you know, I don't know if you're also friends with Ron Guerin, who's another one of our Google+ superstars around here, and
he's just a superstar, period.
I know, he's actually like, he's touched the stars kind of a guy.
He's an astronaut. I mean,
I
dude.
know. And he was telling me once about what it felt like to break out of the incredible G-force pull of being connected to planet Earth and then actually becoming weightless. And to me, it sounded just like what it feels like to go after your dream. There's this moment, or years of moments strung together, where it literally feels like the entire weight of the world is on your chest, and it doesn't feel like you're gonna make it, you know, your heart is just being crushed backwards. And then all of a sudden, at least this is what it felt like for me, all of a sudden something clicks and you're just weightless. And that was that first hangout for me, was this moment of, even though I'd only sung for 9 people as far as I knew, in that first moment after that first song, something in me clicked. I said, my life is different. And something I actually haven't shared much. I'll give you a scoop.
I love scoops.
Something I don't think I've shared before, really in interviews, is that I actually had been invited to audition for The Voice, and I had a ticket and everything, and it was going to be 3 days later. So it was 3 nights before was my first hangout. And I had been avoiding those kinds of shows for all sorts of reasons. I was sort of doing this, like, Sting didn't go on Star Search, you know, I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it like my heroes, you know. And in that moment I said, I'm not going. Something just changed. I don't know what it is, but I could feel that something changed, and I wanted to see that through and see if there was a road less traveled, you know. And so that's what it felt like.
You know what's really interesting is I have a friend she's, you know, older now, no longer in business. She's way, you know, retired for years and everything. But I asked her one day, because she was hugely successful in business, like millions, right? At a time when women didn't really do that.
Yeah.
So she was very interesting on many, many levels. And I asked her one day, what do you think it all boils down to? And she said, she thought about it for a minute, and then she said, it's really very simple. She goes, it's timing and opportunity. She said, if you don't have, you can prepare and prepare and prepare. And if you have the opportunity, but you know, your time isn't now, then you miss it. And if the timing happens and says, okay, here it is, and you haven't prepared, then you miss it on that end too. So it's this whole notion, I think, of the preparation, which often doesn't feel like you're getting anywhere.
It really doesn't. And I tell people, like, you can't judge it by that, because it really feels like you're on a treadmill sometimes. I remember I wrote a song, I never finished it, called Treadmill, where it feels like that, where you just don't feel like you're getting anywhere.
Yeah, and at the same time, you have to be willing to jump, even if you're not 100% sure that is the opportunity, but you have to jump when you hear that inner voice, go.
And
Just
then
like
the fun part, the fun part then I felt was then after the click, you all of a sudden start to see, kind of like an accordion expands backward, you see all of the things that you learned all of that time that you thought you weren't getting anywhere, and how each one of those lessons now plays out, and you need every single one of them for what was about to come. So I feel like that. It's like, oh, I didn't know I had this tool in my toolbox, and oh, I didn't know I had this one, and I was gaining them along the way. And every single one of them is necessary. So it's kind of feels like a divine plan when you get into that headspace. And I think that's maybe a more forgiving, more exciting way to think about it than the fear of missing it on either end. You know, I really like quoting my mom. I quote all the time on stage, I think, you know, and she had told me this amazing thing, this idea of pick a dream bigger than a lifetime. That way you always have something to do. And so that idea of, like, you won't run out. And I've always been so grateful for the idea that, you know, as a musician, you can really do that forever. And it's funny to some people now, you see these amazing rock stars rocking out in their 60s and 70s, and they might look a little funnier in their skinny jeans now than they did when they were, you know, young and cute, but they're still rocking out and they still sound amazing. And I think that if you were a gymnast or something, there's a lot of heartache in that, of being amazing at something but having kind of a firefly-sized lifespan for the thing you love the most, and then realizing you're going to have to figure out something else you want to do for the rest of it. So I'm grateful that being a singer can be a fine wine kind of thing, and you can grow into it forever, and that it doesn't have to run out. So I think that's another reason why I think music is a really beautiful art form, and really photography too. I mean, you can snap photos forever. So
yeah, it's funny, because when I photograph, some people play music. I usually hear music in my head while I'm photographing.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, a lot of the time, especially the really big, like, more scenic photos, literally they're being scored in my mind while I'm taking them. Yeah, so it's always been like that, though. Everything I've ever done has always had a little music score in my head to go with it.
That's beautiful, though. I wish I could just tap in and hear it.
I know. I wish I could tap in and write it. I just have no ability in that area. Well, okay, so for all of what you've been through, and the 10-year overnight success, I love that, overnight success, and because we all know it's never overnight.
No, no, no.
What, I mean, I hate this question, and here I am going to ask it. What, what, or does it, do you think, what one like insight could you share? Was there like one thing that it all kind of boiled down to for you?
One thing that what all boiled down to?
That you're, you know how,
The experience or what
yeah,
got
you
me?
know, okay, let me put it to you this way. Let me flip it the other direction. When you are on your way somewhere, you have like a daily mantra or vision, or you have this one thing that you focus on, and then you look back and you realize that was the thing that
Mm,
had you let go of that one um insight, or that one inspiration, or that one
yeah.
thought.
So for me, so I have a few of them, but if I had to pick one,
Uh-huh.
or can I give you a couple?
Yeah.
Um, okay. So basically, there were these really, really clear choice points, I think, and right before everything clicked, I had this sort of epiphany moment that I called the gratitude shift. And I realized that I had to shift the way I was feeling about what I was doing. I was literally like the story I tell about lugging my amps through the rain and playing empty clubs, and all of that stuff was true. It was happening. It was happening for the 10-year overnight success sized, amount of time. And I was desperate to find a way to feel differently about it because I actually said in my TED talk, I realized that suffering through your dream is no way to manifest it. And I had shed enough tears to know. And that was really, really true. And so there was literally this one night where I was lugging my amps through the rain and I decided, what if I was just grateful for everything? Like, what if I love bombed this whole experience and just see what happened? And so that night, so I'm drenched, my hair's all messed up. I got to go on stage. My pedal breaks, the pedal that I always use on stage, and that broke. And I was like, okay. The split second before I went, no, I went, okay, that's interesting. This is going to be great. What will happen without it? And then the 3, 5, 10 people that are in the room, and hey, guys, you're the most important people on the planet tonight. I'm so excited to be here with you, and just really, really flipped the experience for myself. And everything genuinely shifted. The people reacted totally differently. I mean, I always got a nice reaction, but it never turned into anything after that. And that night ended up being the first night that anyone followed me really from one gig to the next and was standing there in the front row, like filming me on his iPhone as if I was in a big stadium somewhere. And he
Mm-hmm.
was just the only guy standing there. But it made me feel more like I was in that experience. And everybody, it was this transformative, it had this glow to it that whole night. It could have been a total disaster. I could have gone home crying. And instead, everything felt kind of rebellious and fun and different. And then that was, the night that I got the call from my brother who was like, hey, have you heard about this thing called Google Plus? And
Yeah.
so that was what happened. So I call that the gratitude shift, and I also kind of call the whole experience fierce joy, which is another little quippy thing that I came up with sort of to keep in my back pocket that I could use, because I realized that I had this pull to feel bummed out about all of this stuff, to feel like, what am I doing? Maybe I didn't have a backup plan. That was the other half of my mom's quote, was don't have a fallback because you'll fall back on it. So I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want a backup plan. So I didn't know what I was going to do. And so that was knowing that feeling joyful for me was this high octane fuel, where then I felt like I had something to give. So I couldn't let myself go down the pits of despair,
Mm-hmm.
And then the fierce part was having to sort of fight for it and protect it like a little light, and not let those drenched nights kind of drown it out. So those were two things that I think are little things you could put in your back pocket that I really carry around with me every day.
Well, now, what do you say to people who say, "Oh, that's just such a Pollyanna"? Well, that's an old-fashioned term, but that's just such a rose-colored glasses. Real life isn't like that.
It is. I totally agree with you. I am nice to meet you. I am Pollyanna reborn. I found that there's tremendous power in that. I've found that if you're daring enough to look at things in the way you want to see them, that they start to take on the shape that you want them to. I know it sounds completely crazy, but at the very worst, you feel better about everything. It's like, if it's all made up anyway, if you want to believe in a construct that we're making stuff up, then why not make it up to be something that you like, right? So, so at the very worst case scenario, you feel better about what's going on. I could have felt really crappy about that night in the rain, and instead I had a really good time. And
Right.
even if nothing had ever happened, I still would have had a nice memory. I would have known that I had touched those 10 people that were there. The guy who owned the crappy bar would have still said to me, "Hey, kid, you're not going to be in crappy places like this for very long." All the things that happened that night, I would have still been able to hold on to them. Whereas if I had shut myself down, nobody would have probably even seen me. They probably would have just drunk their beers, and they wouldn't have even known I had been there really. And I would have just wasted a night and felt bummed out. So even if it hadn't changed anything, I still would have felt better. So I think that that's even enough on its own. But then I think there is a magic in that kind of shift, that
Hmm.
then you discover things about yourself. You see things that you wouldn't have normally seen. You end up noticing people, or they notice you, and the magic starts to unfold. So I think
Yeah.
life can be as flat or three-dimensional as you decide you want it to be. So the rose-colored glasses are much more fun to look through anyway, so it's worth a shot. I actually remember saying that to myself when I thought of the gratitude shift thing. I was like, it's worth a shot. Like, what's the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen is nothing happens, and nothing's happening, so I got nothing to lose, kind of a thing. So if anybody's
Hmm.
watching this and thinking that sounds dumb, give it a shot for like a week. See if you feel differently. See if your life feels different, because that's what happened to me.
This wraps part one of my visit with Daria Musk, and I hope you'll join us for part two, where we talk about manifesting dreams, making choices, and Daria sings for us. See you then.